What is the Buy America Act? This act was passed in 1933 at the end of the Great Depression by President Hoover in an attempt to protect American jobs and businesses during a time where America was having the greatest downturn in their economic history. To help keep American jobs, the act argued that government procurement should preference American goods and services and American companies and products. The government argued that, after all, the taxpayer dollars were being used to purchase these goods and services, and they felt that the money from the taxpayers should go right back into our economy. The act treated the American taxpayer dollars as sacred. The federal U.S. government spends roughly $600 billion each year on procurement of goods and services to keep the country going. That's just the federal government. Other branches also spend lots of money. It's in the trillions. But to begin with, what is considered American, right? So to be considered American, a product had to have at least 50% of its inputs be American products. Now it's at 55 due to some changes the Trump administration made. And it's a preference, it's not a requirement, so foreign countries do win bids, but for an American company to win a bid, for a small company to begin with, they needed to be no more than 12% more expensive than their foreign counterpart. That has been upped now to 30%. And for large companies, initially they needed to be no more than 6% more expensive than their foreign counterparts, but now it's at 20%. And America is not the only country that put this in place. Many other countries followed suit. They thought it was a great idea, and as a result, we have all these countries not trading with each other when it comes to government procurement. So it opened this opportunity where we could trade with each other and make deals that could benefit one another, since trade wasn't happening. And so eventually, today we use what's called the Government Procurement Agreement, also known as GPA, and the World Trade Organization helped put that in place. In the GPA, there are sub-agreements, one of which is the Trade Agreement of the 1979, and that allows the president to make exceptions or override the Buy America Act when felt necessary. Today, the American people aren't asking so much of whether we should open our economy more to foreign markets when it comes to government procurement and the Buy America Act. They're more asking if we should go back and close our economy more. A lot of people feel that the exceptions that were made and the contracts we are currently in with foreign economies should have never happened in the first place, and that we should break those contracts and go back to predominantly just dealing with American companies. There are others who feel that we need to honor our agreements and we need to follow through with the contracts that were made from the previous administration in order to keep good relations with those countries. But what is really spent in these foreign economies? So currently we spend roughly 4% of our budget with our defense teams that are overseas on things like gas, things that they have to buy there because we're not going to ship gas, overseas. And another percentage is about 8 to 9% of inputs that are going into American goods are from foreign countries. So when you think about these percentages are coming from a budget of hundreds of billions of dollars. These percentages aren't minor, they're pretty large. But when we think about trade and free trade and the benefits of free trade, we remember that when free trade is allowed, these taxpayers are going to be getting a better deal. It's not going to be as expensive to buy these goods. And maybe in the long run, if we are spending less money on government procurement because we're getting a better deal from foreign economies, maybe our taxes will go down. Or maybe as a result, the government can use the excess taxes on paying off our debts so that in the long run, there isn't as high of an interest rate that the American people are having to pay back. But because the Buy America polls so well across all forms, like all the political parties, there hasn't really been any studies done on the actual cost that is going against, like the cost of this act towards America, because no one's interested in the cost. They see it as patriotic to, spend our taxpayers' dollars on our businesses and our jobs. Politicians know that if they campaign to either reduce or remove the Buy America Act, it would be political suicide. Someone else will come in and, call them a traitor or whatever, and they'll win the new election and they'll put all these regulations back in place. Buy America is good politically. Like, politicians really have to follow it if they want to stay in office. But if more free trade did happen, yes, American jobs would be lost. Some, businesses would close. But in the long run, that labor and those resources could be used on something that they have a larger advantage over. And it could just benefit us in the long run. It could be beneficial to Buy America during recessions. So our government isn't using their resources to leak into foreign economies, when those governments should really be stimulating their own economies. But that doesn't really track when our economy is going through an economic boom. Buy America could help with the infant industry argument, especially considering 1/4 of the budget is set aside for small businesses. And as a result, as a result, the Buy America Act is very expensive. So yes, it could help infant industries, but on the con side, it's very expensive to the American taxpayer. They're not really getting a good deal. Their money is buying less goods. The Buy America Act helps promote manufacturing jobs, so if that's important to someone, then that is a pro of it. But it's also very disruptive, because when politicians or government officials need to make these exceptions, there's a lot of red tape to go through in order to not have to follow the Buy America Act. And yes, there's exceptions where if it's not available in America, then you can buy it you can buy it in foreign markets, but there's still just this red tape, and so it puts delays and makes it harder for the government to purchase these things. I believe it could be beneficial to America to do a study on the cost and not close ourselves off any more than we already are to foreign markets. I understand maybe not wanting to open up more, but definitely closing ourselves off is not the answer.